Hello, listeners. Welcome back to another episode of the No Nay Never podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Bromley, and coming up this week, we're looking back at that fantastic last gasp winner at home to Portsmouth. It's been a while since Turf Moor was rocking to the extent that it was. With shades of Rotherham from last season, the away supporters were left ruining the time wasting that they put on the Clarets as they continue their quest for championship promotion. I'm joined this week by regular panelists George Poole and Robbie Kopak. We are here to analyse everything that you need to know after that game. So, listeners, buckle up. Let's go. Hello, Robbie. Hello, George. How are you both?
Good evening. Very good. Well.
Good. This is a change to our regular lineup at the moment. It's been a while since I can't remember the last time we had you two on together. This is very exciting. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was.
Remember the last time you were on full stop, Robbie? You just come and go when you please these days. You're just off on one.
To be fair, I think it were just before Blackburn, I think. So
yeah, it was.
To be fair, we've only had one game since then, so that's harsh.
I don't. It is harsh, but I don't like to miss the opportunity to wind you up for not coming on enough, Robbie. We miss you. We miss you when you're not here. That's all. And George, we're used to your little face popping up on Referee Watch on the preview show, so it's quite nice to have you for a full show this week.
Yeah, I'm unscripted and unfiltered.
Well, you're not quite unfiltered because I do have the power of an edit button. So if you start again, I'm going to start muting you. Gentlemen, we are of course looking back at that last gasp winner at home. What a game. What a second half anyway. I'm not sure the first half lived up to too much of a spectacle, but that second half, I just genuinely didn't think the Clarets were going to do it. And it was a fantastic feeling to jump and celebrate a goal to the extent that we did in the last dying stages of that game. Robbie, I'm going to start with you. And I think this is probably indicative of what we're seeing in the Championship at the moment, or what we're going to have to get used to, is teams coming to us and making it incredibly difficult to break down, defending with their lives, not really pushing too much in terms of an attack themselves or pressing particularly high. And the second thing as well, which was equally, if not more annoying, this ridiculous trend that they've got into of just falling over willy-nilly and just getting free kicks all the time. To what extent is Championship football quite frustrating when you're a side like Burnley trying to play and trying to create chances?
It's an interesting one. I don't really have a problem with gamesmanship. We did it under Dyche for years, and we were the kings at it. My issue is how referees police it, and the referee was falling for it time and time again. And then the counter argument to that is that we got 8-9 minutes at a time, and we scored in that time. But then we were hanging on for 6-7 minutes from the time they were time wasting from, and it's like, that's not fair. But yeah, it's just part and parcel of the game. It's always going to be an issue until the referees clamp down on it. And as soon as the referee loses control of the game, they're just going to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And it is what it is. At the end of the day, we were doing it at Leeds. Portsmouth come to us and did the same thing. So it's it swings and roundabouts at the end of the day.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think, just to be clear, it's not something that I've particularly got a problem with myself. I think the a previous era of Burnley Football Club, we're the last ones to be able to talk about how we win games ugly. But George, I guess from your perspective, where I'm looking at this is more, well, we're going to have to find a way to break these teams down, because if we want to get out of this league, and particularly if we want to win it or we want to go up automatically, you've got to win more games than you draw. And we saw how difficult it was to break down the Blackburn side. And actually, it took a very late goal at home to Portsmouth. That could have easily have ended in another draw at home as well. So I guess for me, it's how we find ways of breaking down these sides and actually getting those wins.
It's a bit of deja vu there, isn't there? Because it feels exactly like it did 2 years ago under Vincent Kompany, except I'd probably say a little bit more optimistic this time, because we've started winning games earlier. 2 years ago, we had this real problem of teams sitting back and being well set up, and fair play to them, they've come with a game plan. They're up against a better side. It's exactly how you would want to go about winning or drawing a game if you were them. But for us, it provides a problem. And I think we've maybe got ahead of ourselves. Sorry, we've gotten further forward than we did 2 years ago. This time 2 years ago, we were drawing those games and we were struggling. This time, we've beaten a really good Portsmouth team. And I don't think we should take that much away from Portsmouth, because I think they'll be the strongest of the 3 teams that have come up. And I really like the manager, and for all the theatrics, etc., they provided a really good game plan on Saturday. The only thing I'd probably mention, and we'll discuss this, further forward in this podcast, we probably do miss 1 or 2 little sparks that were there 2 years ago that came good. I think Nathan Teller was the obvious gem, and it wasn't just him as a player; it was the way he was utilised in terms of running in behind from a wing position to going into an inside forward. He just offered us a different dynamic, and perhaps this season we don't quite have that little gem, shall we say, to unlock a defence. But we managed it on Saturday.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And Robbie, I think that's probably how I was feeling at half time. Sorry, I'm losing all my equipment here, listeners. And that's probably how I felt at half time at the game. I get quite easily frustrated when things don't go our way, and because I can't see where we're going to be able to break it down. And I thought the first half particularly was, if I say, maybe a bit uninspiring from that Burnley side. I think, and the caveat to that is, of course, we were up against a strong Portsmouth side who I thought played much better in the first half than they did the second half. I think they could have, if they'd have carried on in the second half the way they did in the first, I think they could have gone on to win that game or definitely get themselves a point. I think the gamesmanship and the theatrics overtook their ability to just actually play the game very well. But irrespective of that, and irrespective of the challenges of trying to break down a side like that, I didn't see much of that spark that George mentioned at all in that first half. It felt very laborious to me and didn't feel like we were creating very much. It was very side to side, but without any purpose. And I was really frustrated with that first half.
Yeah, I think we all were, to be fair. I think Portsmouth were good value in the first half. I felt they deserved to, go in with a lead at half time. And yeah, I felt we were playing a little bit too deep. I thought that Worrell and Esteve were a little bit ponderous in terms of like trying to play out from the back and stuff like that. And I felt we were progressing the ball fairly okay, but we were just too slow, and then it got wide to like an Anthony or whoever, and they're just playing the safe option a little too much. Just recycling possession basically when the pass wasn't on. Sometimes you have to take a bit of a risk, whether that's, putting the ball into the box or taking a shot or whatever. You can see that there's nothing wrong with taking a shot sometimes. A deflection, a ricochet, anything can drop for you. I just thought we were just a little bit too ponderous, a little bit too safe in the first half. But then I thought with the second half, I thought we were excellent the second half. I thought at times where it was a little bit slow and it took time to unlock that stubborn Portsmouth defence, but I thought we were pretty good. I thought the tempo was good, higher up the pitch. And to be fair, I can't remember Portsmouth having much of a punch about them in the second half.
No, they didn't.
Whether that was their game plan, just to literally slow the game down at all costs. But I also like to give us a bit of credit and say we, penned them back in and we retained possession really well. It was just a case of we didn't really create much again, which is a slight cause for concern. But the flip side to that is that we've got a good habit of winning games when we're not playing well. So
which we didn't have last year, which is, and I think that side of our squad and that side of our resilience, I'm really pleased to see come back, Robbie, because it's finding those, Company for whatever reason, i.e. his own career, wouldn't do that. He wouldn't find that digging and that real ugly stuff that you needed to do to try and grind a result at, and it feels like Scott Parker's got that mentality, and it feels like he's got the players thinking that. It's like, how do we find a way to the 98th minute to still find this? And even the goal itself, you know what I mean? It was a good finish, but it still just bobbled past the keeper. It kind of went in slow motion almost. It wasn't a worldie, but it was a result of just that, refusal to give up right until the end. It's like, well, we've got 8 minutes. So we've been given 8 minutes because they've time wasted. So let's use that. I think I'm personally, I don't understand how we could come out in the second half so much more proactive than we did in the first half. I definitely want to see much more of the second half and do the first. But George, do you think it was a mistake starting Foster rather than Fleming? Foster had a very difficult game, and he didn't look in it to me at all. Now that's fine, you know, you're not always going to have an amazing game. Sometimes you have off days like we all do. But it felt to me that perhaps we would have had a bit more of a spark if we'd have started with Fleming and not Foster. I wonder how you feel about that.
There seems to be, to my mind, there's an accumulation of maybe 3 or 4 things that meant the first half was a bit of a struggle. I think, you know, number one, it's a new team. You know, it's a complete new team, really. You know, getting to gel with themselves, and you're expecting in the first 5, 6, 7, 8 games that to take time to gel. So I think that's one point. I think maybe the second point is Portsmouth played well. We're set up well. They nullified us at times. I think number 3, you've got a midfield 3, ironically, there of Hannibal, Brownhill, and Cullen, all of whom are probably best played as the sort of number 8. You know, maybe a Cullen can be a number 6 and sit deeper and an organised player there. But I think in Brownhill and Hannibal, you've got 2 number 8s there. And I don't really have too much of a problem of starting all 3 against, you know, your top 6 or 7 sides in the league where you need that little bit more control. You can get on top of the game and control that midfield. So I think in that midfield 3, you've got a fantastic trio. But against the Portsmouth side who are intent on sitting back, you could have done with a Fleming in that number 10 position, perhaps instead of a Hannibal, who's just got a bit more attacking intent or a bit more just attacking instinct to him than a Hannibal, who's a natural midfielder. So that's my first 3. And you've alluded to probably the 4th point there, which was just individuals perhaps not having a good game. I think Anthony struggled. There was a few moments where he got one-on-one with his man and couldn't quite get round him and stuttered where, you know, 2 weeks ago against Rovers, he flourished. You know, that happens. And in Foster, you had the striker there who was really struggling. He was coming too deep. He wasn't, even when he was coming deep, he wasn't getting on the ball. He wasn't linking up play. When the ball was going towards the box, he wasn't in the right position to get the ball. It just seemed like nothing was coming off for him. Nothing was even going in the direction. So there's 4 probably reasons there that I'd say your first half performance in particular was a struggle. So my point perhaps would be Fleming should start as a number 10 there, and that might unlock something in Foster rather than dropping Foster outright. But Robbie, I'd be interested to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, I think Foster flourishes again. We've seen the best. Every time we've seen Foster be good is when he's driving at defenders. I always think of Aston Villa away last year. I thought it was probably his best performance in the Burnley shirt. His goal away at Luton again. He sort of beat that line, and then he just in a race with a defender, and he goes through on goal. I don't think his style is against a deep defence. I think if we're up against like a Ellen Rose, for example, I think he would have had a really good game. Obviously, he missed a game, he was ill or whatever. So I agree. I think we need like a proper number 10 or someone alongside him to try and give him a little bit of leeway. I felt sorry for him because I agree with George. I think it's difficult at home if you're going to play the 2 number 8s with Hannibal and Brownhill. And I think Scott Parker
that's not working for me.
I understand the logic.
Yeah.
But again, I think with Portsmouth at home, I think you have to take a bit of a risk. And he did, to be fair, in the second half. And he took off Hannibal, who, to be fair, as much as I love Hannibal, I love how dynamic he is, and he has a bit of bias about him, but he's a walking red card. If you don't take him off on the hour, he's going to get himself sent off. So
it's a bit of a quandary, isn't it, Robbie? I don't really know what we're going to do with him as the season progresses. And I think I was talking to somebody at the game on Saturday who said actually they had this problem at United as well, is that he's never really found his place in a side. He's always played in that position. You know, he's perhaps a little bit too much of a waste in that number 8 role. He is perhaps a little bit too dynamic and a little bit too creative to be stuck as a pure number 8, but he's probably not quite good enough or quite fast enough to be a proper number 10 either. So it's like he's kind of stuck in middle ground, really.
Yeah, I sort of think about billing at Bournemouth, he was more typically like a number 8 or a number 6 at Huddersfield. But he had a really good season under Scott Parker at Bournemouth, and he got like double figures in terms of goals playing higher up. So whether he might see something in Hannibal. And again, I can see the logic. I can see Hannibal being, because he is quite dynamic and he does press from the front. He is like really aggressive. So you can understand why playing higher up the pitch, trying to win the ball higher up the pitch. So it just wasn't working against Portsmouth, but it wouldn't surprise me if he does the same at Oxford, and it might work. You never know.
Yeah. But it is a genuine concern, George, though, when we talk about, Foster struggling against those really deep defences and not having that space to just unlock his potential and create what he needs to do, is having to find his way just drifting around midfield and way too deep rather than much further upfield where he's naturally going to create more. But the reality of this division this year is that more teams than not are going to play exactly like Blackburn did, exactly like Portsmouth did. So in that sense, we're going to have a problem with Foster this season. How do we unlock this potential? And I guess more importantly, are there enough goals in this side to get us promoted out of this division this year?
I think Scott Parker will manage to find a way. I think there's certainly possibilities in the side, whether it be, a Fleming in the 10 who can take a lot of the attention and the onus away from Foster, and with a defender or two going to a Fleming, who's a big lad, by the way, you need probably a defender or two to mark him.
Yeah,
it opens up that space for Foster, even if it's just 5 or 10 yards. It opens that space for him to burst in behind and play with his chest facing the goal. So you've got that as an option, and you've also probably got an option in playing Koleosho more centrally and more of an inside forward and doing what Nathan Teller did so well 2 years ago. So for me, there's definitely options there to unlock it. I think with a Hannibal as well in the 10. Even though it's not been working particularly so far, I think he's got the qualities for it, and it might be a case of, he's literally played 2 games for us. I believe he has enough quality to make it work and more in that position. So I think there's little nuggets that Parker can bring to this side that will make it more threatening. It's just a case of it might take time and it might take a bit of trial and error. But in the meantime, if we're stuttering but winning, job's a good one.
Yeah. No, I get that. And actually, I think one of the things that is a transition for us as fans this season is remembering that, you can lose 3 games in the Premier League, and if they're games that you should be winning and they're the sides around you or they're the relegation side, you're almost on a losing battle straight away because there's not that many winnable games in the Premier League. The Championship's completely different. It's a lot more competitive. And, you can, as long as we're there or thereabouts by Christmas, nothing really ever happens in terms of shaping promotion and relegation in the Championship until around February anyway. So it's a long old season to go. I think it's just there's just a panic in me, and perhaps it is that transition of learning a new style of football again and learning how to play in a league that isn't quite as easy as it was the last time we were here. It's just a fear in me as to, when we say it will come, like, is it going to come this season, or is this another 3-year project again? I think that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. It's wanting to get over the challenges as quickly as possible, because they don't put you in your comfort zone as a fan when you are seeing that site stuttering a little bit, or you're seeing challenges. You do have a little wobble as a fan sometimes and think, oh God, is this going to be okay? And I'm sure it will be. Sticking with you, George, one of the things there is a good and the bad in terms of our defensive display this week. And I'm going to throw you the good because, sorry, Robert, but there is a fantastic partnership developing, a 3-way partnership developing between our new Holy Trinity of Trafford and Steve and Worrell. And I thought they were fantastic at the weekend. Really, really fantastic.
They really complement each other well, don't they? I think Trafford, first and foremost, needs a solid defence in front of him. He needs a settled duo, and he needs that defence not to play too high a line, which, he was badly exposed under company with a very high line. Now, in Joe Worrell, you got a defender there who's not going to do well in a high line. simple matter of fact is he isn't very quick. For all his positives, he's not a quick defender, so we naturally have to play a bit of a line. What do you call it? Not a higher line. What's the opposite? A lower line. We're going to play a lower line of defence with Worrell there, and with Worrell and Estev, you've got two defenders who can complement each other quite well, because Worrell's a big, old-fashioned, let's say, or not a brute. He's got a bit more quality about him than that, but he can head a ball. He reads the game very well, which is always a hallmark of a good defender with no pace. Is they read the game well. My mind thinks to a Ben Mee. And then in Estev, you've got more of a bit of a more dynamic player. He's not got as much skin on the bone, but he's fairly nimble. He's tall, which helps for us because we're quite a short team at times. And he's better on the ball than Worrell is, so I think he's got one of the best, pass rate completion ratios in the league this season. So in the three there, you've got players that can complement each other very well. And you've also got players that I think fans can buy into. We probably don't talk about it enough, but in Trafford, you've got someone who, was written off at times last season. We've probably all given him the fair share of criticism. But you've got someone to root for there. He's a young kid. He could be our number one for, a fair while. In Worrell, you've got somebody who is just a steamboat. He'll just go and go and go and be reliable. And in Estev, you've got a fantastic character who comes across so well in all his interviews. You got someone who pulled out of the Olympics in the summer just so he could have a full pre-season with Parker. That kind of that they were the noises that we're hearing. And you've just got a team that really cares for each other and is something to root for. So not only they're good on the pitch, but they're there, they're solid, and they're for fans to root for, which we definitely didn't have at times in the sort of chaotic, to and fro of last season with various defences under company. So yeah, I'm glad you threw me the good, because I tell you what, Lucas Perez isn't a good left back.
And as if by magic, the transition then gets passed over to Robbie to talk about the not so good with our defence at the moment. I think it's fair to say, Robbie, that we have a fullback problem. Would you agree?
Yeah, I don't think we've got elite championship full. To be fair, I think Connor Roberts is a top championship right back, and I think we really missed him on Saturday. Lucas Perez, he is the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think sometimes he looks a really good footballer. Like, there were moments in that Portsmouth game where, like, he picked the ball up, a nice little touch, got like a yard of space, and then just switch play nice easily to the right wing, and I was like, oh, Lucas Perez is good now. And then
for about 3 seconds, I went, oh, no,
yeah. And then in the next phase of play, he gets caught out with a long ball over the top, and he's like sort of ambling to get back, and it's like, oh, I don't trust you. and then it's sort of, because he had a really good game at Luton where he got a couple of assists, and he had a really good first half in particular, like that day. And then I thought he struggled against Blackburn. And then, to be fair, I thought Portsmouth, he was pretty good without being excellent. I won't say he was like a top championship left back, but I thought he had his moments where it's like, there's a player in there, and hopefully over time and a bit of consistency, he might just develop into a really good fullback. But we certainly have a right back issue in terms of, if Roberts is out, I don't know who we play there. Because I'm surprised that Humphrey was suspended, isn't he?
Yeah, he was suspended.
I forgot about that. Sorry.
I presume that he's
going
to play there. Yeah.
Yeah, ignore me then. Because Egan Riley is he frightens me at times.
Yeah, that was. I mean, listen, we aren't going to criticise him. He was way out of position at right back, and I think that's harsh. But I think, Robbie, the biggest thing for me was that he man marked his own player out the game. He was constantly in Luca's way. He was getting in the positions where Luca was going to have, and he kind of rendered him ineffective, which just meant that we didn't have any creative play at all coming from the right-hand side, which we really, really needed. And I think that was a challenge.
Yeah, we didn't have anyone sort of underlapping or overlapping for Luke Collier-Shaw to sort of like get himself like a yard of space. We're not really getting the best out of Luke Collier-Shaw on that right-hand side, where we just rotate the wingers a little bit. You just need to stick to that right-hand side and just hug the touchline.
Yeah.
I think he's doing fine. I thought he had a decent game without, really affecting it too much. I thought he was fine, but there's certainly more we can unlock out of him. But I do think it comes from, we've not really had Connor Roberts in the last couple of weeks, so we'll wait and see.
Yeah, we will. George, one thing that we've spoken about a couple of times in the build up to this podcast is one thing that we haven't seen for a while, and that is a strong jaw from this side. They did not give up, and to see them still trying to go for the winner. I mean, to be fair, they did that to an extent against Blackburn as well, but to see them really, really pushing and using that extra time and having so much more yards of pace and so much more still left in the tank than the Portsmouth players. It was just very, very pleasing to see the return of a side that is playing for each other, is playing for their manager, that has got that rapport with the fans and is just playing with a smile on its face and a determination to get the job done. We haven't seen that for a while.
It's a very simple analysis, but it's a point that we've all heard noises, from the club and the fans of. Parker seems to be a great mix of company and, Dyche, because in Dyche you had the characteristics of a really solid team, a solid defence, great character about the group, great team harmony, that connection with the fans. But in company, to give his credit, he brought us a passing style of football that we've not seen at Burnley in my life and probably for a long time, probably since 1960s. So you seem to have a really nice blend there. And I guess that sort of exemplified, let's say, in the last 20 minutes on Saturday in that the team was running for each other. They were gunning for a goal. The crowd were right behind them, but they were sticking to their guns and playing the style of football that Parker wants to play. And the sort of continuation of company's sort of style and that passing football, which, hey, look, it's not my cup of tea, but they stuck to it, And in the last 10 minutes, there was countless calls of unfit forward, get it forward, get on with it from the crowd behind me in the North Stand Up.
Not from me. No, I was not shouting that.
Well,
not want to see the return of that.
there was plenty of that, but they have so much. They have confidence in what Parker's instilled in them, in what they can do. We're gonna bide our time. And I think there are nuances which people should appreciate and don't appreciate. And that if you're passing it, between your centre backs and between your full backs, and you're taking your time, you're not doing it for the sake of just doing it. You're doing it because little by little, the goal is you're bringing Portsmouth up the pitch and out of position, because they've got to try and win the ball back. And by doing so, you're opening up space back here in the opponent's final third. So, and you could see that to a point. Sometimes it didn't work on Saturday, but sometimes it did. And in Brownhill's winner, you had passing it, and then Sarmiento gets the ball, and Sarmiento does. He was fantastic. We haven't mentioned his name yet, remarkably in this.
No, podcast. We haven't. Yes, I'm trying not to, because I might get a bit giddy and be like, "Oh, he's so dreamy,
yeah.
He's so lovely."
But he can be the next question. He can be the next question to Robbie. But Sarmiento does so well with a winner, and he skips past a couple of guys. He's passed it across. Worrell's in a bit of space, more space than you'd expect at that time of the game, and he gives it to Brownhill, who then scores. So there's just spaces opening up with that, with it building from the back, and it is frustrating at times. Look, I'm the first probably sometimes to shout, just get it forward. But sometimes it's worth investing in themselves, and they did. They stuck to Parker's principles whilst also maintaining that character and belief that we all appreciate. So yeah, nothing but plaudits from me for the winner, because it was a fantastic moment. It was my first game at the Turf this season and in a few months, so just delighted. It was a great moment.
Good. Yeah, it's definitely some subs that changed the game, Robbie. I think it wasn't just the substitutions that changed the game. I thought the entire attitude and the shape and the direction of the team changed in the second half, even before the first substitution was made. But I thought Josh Laurent and Sarmiento were both exceptional when they came on, and definitely changed something. I don't know to the extent, Sarmiento we start with. I don't know to the extent he has a starting place at the moment. I'm pretty sure he's going to be knocking on the door before long. But both of them they brought something different. I thought they both brought more skill on the ball. Laurent, I thought, brought, if that's how you pronounce it, brought a physicality and a strength in midfield, and they struggled to get the ball off him. So he retained our possession, which I think we've struggled with this season. I'm getting a little bit fed up of the ball just being passed and losing possession. That's annoying me a little bit. And then you have the tricky feet and just the skill of Sarmiento to create those chances. They were two unbelievable players to bring on.
Yeah, I think we're sort of blessed on that sort of left wing where Anthony and Sarmiento are two different type of wide men. I think Jadon Ante is more, if I use like Man City as an example, a bit more like a Jack Grealish. He's going to retain the ball quite nicely, recycle possession. I might just give you a moment of magic like he did against Blackburn with that cross.
Yeah.
Sarmiento's going to be a bit more of a Doku, where he's got that little return of pace, can get that half a yard. So I think we're blessed with that sort of what options we have. And I think in certain games, Sarmiento might start where it might just suit him a little bit more. And then in another game, it might suit more of an Anthony just to,
Anthony was very good,
try and unlock something. I thought Anthony struggled a little bit on Saturday. I thought he was.
Oh, I thought he was all right. That's interesting.
I mean, I don't think he was a long way from bad. Don't get me wrong. I just thought he was a little too safe. That's all. Just in terms of we'll get the ball, and instead of taking a risk, we'll recycle possession and give it back to Perez and go back inside or whatever. As like Sarmiento come on, stud his man up, cut on the inside, feints again, and then whips it into the far corner. Just taking that little bit of a chance. It might look stupid and hit the corner flag like sometimes you do when you do that, but Sarmiento's almost our right-footed Manuel Benson. He just reaches that when he come on.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because that's what Manuel Benson did on the right-hand side of the company, where it's like, exactly what he's going to do, but he's got such quick feet that it's impossible to stop it. You saw that with Sarmiento, where he just feints a couple of times and then just whips it into the far corner.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I guess looking at this going forward then, George, obviously it's been a bit of a stop-start season for us so far. Yet we've got the points on the board, and we're up there at getting to the top of the table, and we've won more than we've lost. We've only lost one game, we've drawn one, we've won the other four, haven't we? I think. Oh no, we've drawn two. Sorry, we lost one, drawn two, won three, right? And I think, I guess to that extent, now we're starting to see Parker's squad settle down a little bit, and he's starting to get, a bit more of his marker on the squad and his style of play in the training ground. Like, has your opinion of what we can achieve this season changed?
Probably not. Because I always thought we'd get a good squad, and I always, look, I wasn't the most enthusiastic about Parker's appointment, but you couldn't argue at the time. He's got 2 promotions. I probably from the very second he was linked. Actually, I probably feared and thought, yeah, he's done all right at the M2 jobs, but look, he's a busted flush. I don't think he can do the job real. So probably from that very moment, my expectations have changed, because I've really liked the cut of his jib in all his interviews, and the way he comes across, and the way his team's set up. So I guess my expectations have, changed from that moment. But what I think coming out the weekend is it'll be us and West Brom vying, for the top 2 positions. I really like West Brom. I think they're going under the radar. They got a good manager who's not quite got a promotion under his belt yet, but he's itching to get one, and they've put together a good side quietly, but surely. So I think West Brom will be a really tough opponent this season, and I think Sunderland might just drop away a little bit. They've got a good squad and they've got momentum behind them, but we've seen it all before. Those sides can. It's a long old season, Natalie, as you alluded to. After February, it's when squad depth comes into play, and I just think a side like that can fall away. So I've been really impressed with our start. I think we've got the makings of a top 2 side. The only thing that might hold us back is we're 1 forward short. We don't have a really good backup to Foster. If you're counting Fleming as a number 10, he could be a good second striker, but you'd probably want him to start as a 10. So that's maybe the only downfall. But January might come to our aid there. And before I throw back to you and get Robbie's opinion, I would just like to say Josh Laurent was fantastic. You know, on Saturday, he's a signing that could have gone under the radar, but he's the exact kind of signing that's probably indicative of what Parker's brought to us in that they're getting good characters getting into the group now, and they're getting people that fans can get behind. You know, there's a really good interview on BBC Radio Lancashire Sport on Twitter with him today, a 10-minute one. Seems a really good guy. And when he came on, this is a guy who's come from Stoke and a bit of a meh reaction to his signing, but he really drove us forward. He used a good strength and he just got us up the pitch in a way that I didn't expect to see from him. You know, and maybe
that's a really good point.
maybe that's the kind of driving run that maybe a Hannibal or a Brownhill can probably learn from, but Laurent's got that upper body strength to really pull it off. So he just adds a little different dynamic to us. So pleased to see him do well, and yeah, really expected good things from us this season.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Robbie, do you think this side has got the potential to have some swagger about them, or do you think it is just going to be destined to be a hard grafting industrial 1-0 kind of difficult to break down kind of side?
Yeah, I think time will tell. Obviously, it's still like a new group learning. We've seen signs of it. Like Luton was our best performance, but it was a completely different 11 where it's almost like we can't even include that anymore. Like our season started after Blackburn or against Blackburn. Sorry. But yeah, I think the signs there, but I think the way teams are going to come up, certainly to Turf Moor, are going to set up to be difficult to break down. And 9 times out of 10, we might, I think it will help if we can get an early goal. If we can get an early goal to make the opposition sort of like, press us a little bit more and go toe-to-toe with us, then I think that's when we'll see the best of us. But
yeah,
if games are, if we're 1-0 down or stay 0-0 for a long period of time, then it's going to be like that. And certainly Parker likes us to be solid. He's not like, I think Company's like, it's win at all costs. As I think Parker's a bit more, if you can't win it, make sure you don't lose it. Which is and that's not a criticism either. I'm a bit more like that as well. And there were signs of that on Saturday where it was a bit like, can we take a bit more of a risk? But again, I think that would come with confidence, and I think Saturday certainly give us confidence that if we do take the risk, we'll get our rewards. Like I say, it would be interesting to see how Oxford set up against us on Saturday. Obviously, they're the home team, so might be expecting a little bit to throw a punch at us. So it'll be interesting to see how they line up and how we adapt.
Yeah, no, I think I'm looking forward to seeing how we are at the weekend and see how that plays out. George, any parting shots from you before we leave? Any other comments any other points that you want to raise before we wrap up from this analysis show?
Probably echo Robbie's thoughts in that I did think Jayden Anthony, not to finish on a negative, I did think Jayden Anthony struggled on Saturday, but it's a good problem to have in having a Sarmiento knocking on the door. I think there's a real player in Sarmiento, and I'd love it if we do have an option in his contract. Because obviously he's on loan from Brighton. I dare say we probably won't, because Brighton wouldn't let a good player go, not for nothing. So I think Sarmiento can really flourish for us this season, and I won't be surprised to see him in the starting 11 over the next few weeks for sure. And for any fans going to Oxford, I have been in that away end before, and it is very cold because of that. There's no stand to your right. So all I'll say is take a jacket, because you'll need to wrap up warm.
Oh, what a great place to end this week's podcast. There you go, listeners. Well-being tips from the No Nay Never podcast. Those of you travelling to Oxford, take your coat. Listeners, we'd be really happy to hear what you made of the game at the weekend and how you're feeling about this new look Clarets side and the aims for this season. Do drop us some comments in the video underneath if you're watching on YouTube. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you do not miss another episode of the No Nay Never podcast. Those of you who are listening to this episode on the podcast feed. And you can get in touch with us on all our usual social media channels. My thanks to George and to Robbie for joining me this week to unpick that Portsmouth performance. We would hang around for another 10 minutes, but, you know, we're not time wasters here, and that's going to end up coming back to bite you, Portsmouth. So maybe have a think about that next time you want to do the silly gamesmanship. We will win and we will punish you. That's all we've got time for, listeners. We'll be back on Friday night with the preview show, looking ahead to that game at Oxford. But in the meantime, this has been the No Nay Never podcast. I've been Natalie Bromley. Until next time.
The No Nay Never podcast is brought to you in association with the talkSPORT Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The Analysis Show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby, and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell, and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting nonaynever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners talkSPORT. We are proud to be associated with the talkSPORT Fan Network.